Hi, everyone, and welcome to Café IBTTA. I'm Pat Jones. My guests today are Eric Hemphill and Barry Mickle, the two chief meeting organizers from last week's hugely successful maintenance, engineering, and roadway operations workshop in Nashville. Eric is the director of traffic and incident management for the North Texas Tollway Authority, and Barry is the tolls program director for TransCore. Eric, Barry, welcome to Café IBTTA. It's great to have you with us.
Good morning, Pat.
Good morning. Thanks for having us.
Yeah, it's great to have you here for this special edition of Café IBTTA. Today, we're going to be exploring some of the highlights of the maintenance workshop. First, a big shout out to the 100+ volunteers who participated in the IBTTA Foundation's service project hosted by the Nashville Food Project on the farm at Mill Ridge. We appreciate all the volunteers who donated their muscle and sweat equity. Thanks also to the many companies who provided financial support to the project. Of note, TransCore produced a really cool video showing what we all accomplished together at the service project. So, Kristen, let's run that video and after that, we'll talk more about the maintenance workshop. All right, for those who just joined us, this is Café IBTTA, where we drink coffee and talk about things that are interesting, relevant, uplifting, and fun. Our guests today are Eric Hemphill from the North Texas Tollway Authority and Barry Mickle from TransCore. And we just saw a video that TransCore produced of the service project that we held in Nashville 2 weekends ago. And Eric, Barry, you both spent your Sundays working on that service project. From the video and your own experience, what really stands out for you about that service project?
You want me to start, Eric?
Go ahead, Barry. You got it.
I mean, it was, even watching the video, inspiring again. You know, when you get there, you don't know what to expect. But once again, when you put the right people with the right intentions with a common goal, it's amazing what can be pulled off in a couple of hours. And IBTTA proved it again. And I know a shout out to my colleague Jim Wilson for I know he plays a major role in putting that together. So I just wanted to recognize that as well.
No, I agree with Barry. It's amazing to watch at the beginning of the day, everybody pile out of a bus, not knowing exactly what we're going to do. And just a few short hours later, we walk away with something that'll be left in Nashville forever and benefit hundreds, if not thousands of people over the lifespan of those water tanks and those fields and the food they'll be growing out of it. I also learned that I want to manage like Barry. Somehow every time I turned around, somebody else was pushing a full wheelbarrow and he would move the empty wheelbarrow back into position. So it was my goal to manage like Barry at some point in my life.
So we know you guys were trying to avoid work all day, but I did catch you doing some work, and I wonder if you could tell us a little bit about the work you did and the work that some of your colleagues did as well. What kinds of things did we accomplish at that service project?
So I'll start this one, Barry. We started on a water containment or water catchment area. Basically, there's no water out there, so they need to collect whatever falls from the sky. So starting from scratch with a little bit of help of Tennessee DOT, we got to give a shout out to them for getting a lot of stuff set up ahead of time, as well as Barry had mentioned, Jim Wilson could not be done without him either. But basically from scratch, building an area where they could catch rainwater and then store it into 1,000 gallons, 500-gallon tanks each. But in every IBTTA service project, once you're done with one, you don't just sit back and drink water and stare at everybody else. There was a mad push about 10:30 when we realized we might not get all those fields composted and covered and layered out. And just like every service project, you jump in, you grab the tools needed and get moving to the point where it was fun to just sit back and watch that line of wheelbarrows move in compost. And the amount of compost moved within 30 minutes, I think may have set a record.
Yeah, my day started shoveling gravel in what would be a base of a floor in a pole barn, and then actually I had a little fun. Got to move over and rebuild a sandbox for the children of the families who come there to partake in the farming. And then I was one of those wheelbarrow pushers in the compost heap, trying to get that done with Eric and the team. And we set up a pretty good assembly line. There had to be 6 people shoveling compost into wheelbarrows, and then we had just a train of constant wheelbarrows going back and forth to the folks that were there waiting to spread the compost. And I think we ended up putting together, was it 4 or 8? I think it was 8 fields. Yes. Of garden. So that was a major accomplishment for those folks, as well as the water. I mean, Eric milked it all day, only put up 1 rain catchment, but there were like 4 of those put out there in addition to all the water containment areas that we put up. So it was a very productive day, not to mention a pole barn for the equipment. Just a great thing. We actually got to talk to a couple of the families that had stopped by throughout the day as well. I met a nice family from Venezuela, and you know, it made it all worthwhile once we knew that we were doing something to help people live and in person. So it was a great day. And Pat, as I said in a prior meeting with you, the one thing we got to fix, we can't sell out the service project anymore. I mean, we sold out this service project, which says a lot about the members of IBTTA, that we need to get them all in the field next time.
And
That's exactly right.
I would add to Barry that Barry and I stayed around afterwards, as we know, because we sold out. Some of us didn't have tickets to ride on the bus home, I guess you would say. So some of us stuck around a little bit, and this says a lot about the entire group that came out there, and the IBTTA and the entire organization, where the head of the Nashville Fruit Project basically looked at us and said, we've never had a group like this. Every other group that comes in and says they're going to get stuff done leaves us with half-done projects and a big mess to clean up. We got everything they wanted done and then some, and even cleaned up after ourselves. So that says a lot to everybody that showed up on Sunday. Everybody pitched in and did something.
Well, as Diane Gutierrez-Scacchetti, our 2022 president, said last year after that great service project in Cleveland at the Girls and Boys Club of Northeast Ohio, at IBTTA, we do the job until it's done. And that's exactly what we did out there in Nashville. It was one of the better service projects, certainly one of the biggest service projects we've had. And at Barry, as you suggested, we will strive to make sure that anybody who wants to come next time will have the ability to do that. We also were fortunate that we had good weather. The day before, Saturday, was close to 100 degrees and 99% humidity. And we got some nice cloud cover on Sunday, so it kept the temperatures down and the humidity relatively down. So that was fortunate for the whole crew. So in a minute, I'm going to ask you guys about some of the work that happened during the maintenance workshop on the next 2 days. But first, I want to ask you a little bit about how you got involved in transportation. You know, a lot of guests we have on Café IBTTA say they fell into it. And I'm curious to hear, Eric and Barry, how you guys got involved in transportation and into your current roles.
I
Go ahead, Eric.
personally will. Oh, go ahead, Eric.
Oh, go ahead, Barry.
Barry, you
go
go.
ahead.
Like you said, I fell into it. I started a job as a summer intern prior to college, working for a state agency. And at the end of the internship, they had discussed with me staying on during school, and I actually changed my schooling to. I changed schools and ended up working a summer internship for about 4 years while I went to school. And at the end of it, I just never left. And I just liked every aspect of it. I'm an accountant auditor by trade, which gave me a great opportunity to find out all the systems that ran a transportation agency, because I audited them and tested them. So seeing every aspect of it actually was great training for me early on. So that's how I got into it.
Cool.
I'm going to kind of echo that. When I went to college, I was going to be a physicist. I realized early on that everything moves and I can't handle everything moving. So I did what a lot of chemical and physicists do, is switch over to civil engineering. Wanted to be a structural engineer, build big, tall buildings. And then, much like Barry, I internshiped and realized I didn't want to do that, and got into the paving and the construction and fell into that. And then it just went from there. After the internship, realized that I changed my course of study and fell into it after that, and loved it ever since. I was telling my kids that story, and they said, ironically, your job now is to keep things moving, even though you switched from a degree that everything was moving. Now you have to keep things moving. So really, it's all connected, but never look back and love every minute of it.
You mentioned that you were going to be a physicist, and that makes me think of the movie Oppenheimer. I just saw it last night with my son, and very interesting movie. I highly recommend it.
Yeah, and I realized real quick I was not smart enough to do that.
So let's talk about the maintenance engineering and roadway operations workshop. Eric, you have been involved in a number of these. You've been on the planning group. You've been a chief meeting organizer before. Tell us, from your perspective, what was different about this maintenance workshop?
We wanted to do something different in this workshop. As you mentioned, we've done it all before, and it seems like it was just rinse, repeat, rinse, repeat. We had a lot of feedback and a lot of things that wanted to be covered. And in 2 days, you just can't cover it all. So when the idea of the open space and then honestly, the deep dive rooms came out of necessity. We had those and didn't want to see them just sit empty during the meeting. So the wonderful meeting planning group we had, there were so many ideas thrown out of what we could do with those. It just decided to, hey, let's break these up and create areas where people can just sit down and talk. We called it the lunch meeting all day. If you sit down at lunch or breakfast, you hear a lot of people discussing what went on or what went on the day before. So we created that during the meeting. So this as Barry got stuck with me in planning this, he realized real quick that it was a mistake and he wanted out. But thankfully, he stuck around because we challenged each other and created the open space. And he and I can both admit it now, that if the open space worked, it was Barry's idea. If it didn't, it was my idea. We had already flipped the coin and got that. But we knew that with this group of people, the maintenance and engineering workshop is a different group of people. And so, if we were going to try something new on some people who are very adaptive and very accustomed to changing on the fly and trying things new, it was this group. And so to us, that kind of met our goal. Let's do something different and try something. And the worst case scenario is IBTTA just doesn't ask us to be chief meeting organizers again.
Hey, Kristen, let's show some of those photos of open space, and maybe you guys could talk a little bit about how it actually played out and what were some of the outcomes there.
Yeah, I think the first thing in coming up with the open space, and I can't say Eric and I came up with the open space. I know we had sent out a survey, and we thank everybody who participated in that survey as far as ideas for around the agenda, and they were just all over the board. So I believe, Pat, you were the first one to mention the open space concept, and we jumped on that, but we were all fearful. I'll tell you, I was nervous that I wasn't sure. For those of you who don't understand the open space, it started today, and you can see in that bottom lower picture there, you see Pat. He's reading off the rules of how open space works, and from there we rely on the audience and you'll see, if you see the boards in the back with the papers on there, that's called the marketplace, where people put their ideas and things they want to talk about. Well, when I really got nervous, Pat, was when you asked at the start of the meeting how many first timers we had, and about 70% of the hands in that room went up. And I know, being a first timer, you tend to sit in the back and be quiet, and you may not have so much to say because you're nervous about getting up in front of people you don't know. Well, it wasn't, as Eric said, it wasn't like that with this crowd. In fact, I think you had to cut off the ideas because we didn't have enough days scheduled for the IBTTA conference to cover them all. So it was a combination of folks really wanting to be heard. I thought it was really powerful, Pat, when you put it on everybody in the room. If you came to this conference and you don't get something out of it, it's because you did not raise an idea to be discussed. So it just worked out fantastic. And I thought, especially with newcomers, one of the things Eric and I both stated that we found as a priority for IBTTA is the ability to network and meet new people and leverage those relationships that you build through IBTTA. And it couldn't have been a better forum with the new attendees. I think kicking off the meeting with it just kicked off all of that networking, and I'm sure it went on for the entire conference, and hopefully it's continuing today.
Yeah, it was a great group of people. I really hand it to everybody who participated in the workshop, that they were passionate. They had ideas that they really wanted to share with other people, and they were able to use the experience and the expertise in the room to solve real world problems and challenges that they were having. We've got a comment here from Ian Deckard. He says, to your point, I have yet to attend an IBTTA event and walk away with nothing. Well, that's good. That's a really good attitude to have. And that comes, if you're not walking away with nothing, there's a double negative there. If you're walking away with something, that's because you brought something to the meeting and you were willing to contribute and invest yourself. And I think that's what we saw here with the open space. Hey folks, this is Café IBTTA. We've got our guests Barry Mickle from TransCore and Eric Hemphill from North Texas Tollway Authority. We're talking about the 10 days ago Maintenance, Engineering, and Roadway Operations Workshop in Nashville. If you have questions, please put them in the chat. Use the setting everyone or all panelists and attendees. We'd love to hear your questions. Barry, Eric, there was a nice social event at the workshop. We had a little listening room cafe on Monday evening. Tell us your thoughts about that.
What's to say? I mean, that event was amazing. I had the pleasure of 12 years ago being in Nashville and seeing something similar. And so I kind of knew what to expect. And as people were saying, I'm not sure if I want to go, I had to tell a few folks, hey, just show up. If in the first minute you don't like this, I will get you an Uber back and you'll be out nothing. One of the guys, it took about 30 seconds into the first song, he turned and went, this is awesome, I'm not leaving. So thanks to Butch Ely with Tennessee DOT and all those folks that made that happen. It was a one-of-a-kind event. where you are truly sitting there with some folks that probably names you've never heard of, but you've definitely heard what they've put out there on the market. So just to sit back and listen and enjoy the company of the folks from IBTTA, continue to network, as Barry mentioned, and then have that great event. That was something special.
Yeah, I mean, likewise, I'm usually not at a loss for a word, but I think Eric covered it all on that one. The event was just awesome. And we noticed a lot of comments. I received a lot of comments afterwards about the quality of that event. And not only were they great songwriters, the storytelling that goes on behind it, and the comedy as well. I mean, they just hit on all cylinders, the three songwriters, and it was great.
Eric, you mentioned Butch Ely. Butch, as many people know, is the Commissioner of Transportation in Tennessee, also the Deputy Governor. Tennessee DOT is a new member of IBTTA and was our host. And one of the sessions that stood out for me was Tuesday morning, the conversation that Butch and Andy Vermeer, our president, and Senator Becky Massey had about choice lanes in Tennessee, sort of the emergence of tolling in Tennessee. That stood out for me. And also the closing session on preparing for extreme events. And I wonder if you guys could talk a little bit about either one of those sessions or other things that, really were significant or stood out for you.
Sure, I'll talk about the interview if you want, Eric. I'll tell you, being a Tennessean and witnessing both Butch and the senator, what I loved was the bottom line politics, identifying an issue, find a solution. The choice lanes approach is just a great approach to it. It's one of those things, I've been through that when I was on the agency side, when you have options for both free and tolled, it makes the development go a whole lot easier and faster in explaining it to the traveling public. And in a new tolling area like Tennessee, that's going to be their challenge. And I think they're taking all the right steps. And they have to remember, and the folks in Tennessee have to remember, is tolling in a choice lanes environment is you don't have to pay that premium, but those that not paying the premium to ride those choice lanes are also benefiting when the traffic moves over to them. So everybody benefits. And
Right.
As long as they keep that message going and keep them choice lanes, I think they're going to be just fine. But yeah, I just love the bottom line politics. I thought the senator and Butch did a great job of breaking it down, and we need to solve this problem, period. And it's a tough decision.
I'd like to add on that, as they were discussing that, it was, as they mentioned, it was across the aisle. It was both parties coming together and saying, look, we've got to do something about this growth. And as Butch mentioned, a new F-150 Lightning plant coming to town, people are going to have to get to work. The goods are going to have to get back on the roads. Those trucks don't drive themselves. They've got to be shipped somewhere by people and things. So for them to come together and you don't hear that a lot, as they mentioned, that both sides of the aisle got together and said, we've got to do something. We've got to make the money available. They did so good during the pandemic. They had a budget surplus. So they had the funds and they come together and just get it done, with the governor basically saying, we've got to do this, and the senator stepping up and saying, I'll take the ball and run with it. And then working with everybody and getting it done, the Senate and the House, both, having to take that down to the House and get them on board. So it's very impressive.
Yeah, I think it's another example in which the communications was really spot on, that they really put together a good communications campaign. They communicated with the public in using messages that people could understand, sort of kitchen table kinds of issues, and it was passed with bipartisan support. So yeah, kudos to everybody who was involved in the passage of that legislation. There's a question here for you, Eric. Can you talk about how NTTA reacts to the need for continued improvement due to the amount of traffic in the Dallas metro area?
Well, that is not something I could answer in the remaining time of this Café IBTTA, but I'll be happy to talk with you afterwards. It is a long and complicated road that we go through, but we have wonderful partners in the Dallas-Fort Worth Metroplex between our state DOT, our Council of Governments, which is equivalent to our MPO. All of the group around here are focused on one thing, and that's continuing improvement of the roadways, whether it be toll lanes, freeways, service roads, or just your arterial streets. You know, the amount of growth with the PGA headquarters moving. We have Universal Studios coming just right up the road here. So that's just a tip of the iceberg, but it's wonderful partners all the way down to the city, county level, up to the state and involvement. So I'd be happy to talk with you more about what we do specifically, but if you don't have partners on board, you can't accomplish anything.
And Eric, it really is about partnerships, isn't it? I mean, you try to, so much work, I think, tends to fall into silos and people are not communicating with one another. But you mentioned all the partners that you have in the Dallas Metroplex area, and you've got to work with those folks to make transportation work. You know, it's really a system. It isn't just the state-supported roads or the toll roads. It isn't just the MPO. It isn't just transit. It's all of it working together.
Oh, absolutely. It's as simple as, you know, you can't build enough concrete. So if we're not talking and we're not just, you know, communicating through synchronization of signalizes and frontage roads and things like that, and encouraging those bus lanes and getting those choice lanes, as Tennessee calls them, we call them managed lanes. But you know, it is that whole circle that you have to build with everybody, and to think you're one person's going to solve it all, you're not. You know, every road here touches every other road, and the technology touches every other road, and so you have to have a partnership. Absolutely, 100%. If you're trying to work alone, you're working towards failure.
Barry, you've been on both the agency side, the consultant side, the integrator side. You probably, you've seen the whole issue of partnership from all those different points of view. What are your thoughts on this?
My thought on, I think Eric hit the nail on the head, so to speak. Surround yourself with good people, identify the goal. And it's amazing what folks can accomplish when they have the right intentions and a similar goal. I never underestimate a group of folks. That's one of the things I've been very fortunate with in my career is the ability to surround myself with good people. And we've seen it, as Eric said, in that Dallas area, what they're working toward. We saw it at the volunteer event that we had with the food project, and we see it even in Tennessee with the interview with the senator. It was all about getting the right people in a room, listening to one another and respecting one another's opinions for a common goal, and it sounds like they're getting it done.
Rosa Roundtree, thank you for your message here to Barry and Eric for delivering a memorable maintenance engineering and roadway operations workshop. Love participating and collectively engineering a better future. She says, I helped build gazillions of beehive boxes. Yeah, I was out there for a little while too. David and I look forward to next year's community service project. Thank you, IBTTA. Rosa, thank you for saying that. And I think you express a sentiment of just about everybody who participated in the maintenance workshop. Well, Eric and Barry, I'm going to make a couple of announcements, and then I'm going to come back to you for some final words of wisdom. So don't forget to complete the survey at the end of today's Café IBTTA. We're always interested in hearing what you have to say and suggestions for future topics. September 7th, mark your calendar. From 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. is our conference planning meeting for 2024. It's a virtual event. I think we have more than 100 people registered already. There's no limit. If you want to come and help us plan our meetings for 2024, go to the IBTTA website and register for that virtual conference planning meeting. September 12th, we have a webinar, Transportation Equity and Social Responsibility Programs, hosted by the Women in Tolling in partnership with WTS. September 14th is our book club, the book and the movie 12 Years a Slave, hosted by the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Task Force. October 6th through 10 is our next Board of Directors meeting and the IBTTA annual meeting in Seattle. And check the IBTTA website for details about all of our upcoming meetings. Oh, and I meant to mention, let's put in the chat, we have a special open space meeting format resource page that we promised to put together for the folks who attended Nashville. If we could put that link in the chat here so people could consult that. So Eric and Barry, what final words of wisdom do you have before we sign off today?
I said it just previous. Listen to one another, respect one another, and I think you'll learn a whole lot, and I think you'll be satisfied with the direction that you're going. And I'd like to personally reach out to the first timers who were at the maintenance meeting. Hopefully they're on this call. Don't lose those contacts you made. Trust me, they will serve you well in the future. And so stay in touch, and hopefully I'll get to meet each and every one of you down the road.
Thanks, Barry.
So Pat, I think it best summed up when Barry and I were standing at the Nashville Food Project at the very end. The crowd had left. We're just standing there. Some families were showing up to pick their vegetables and their food. And I just say that you never know who's going through what. So you met some good contacts. Reach out to them. Talk to them. You know, we're all in this together. It's a battle. Everybody's got one. So don't be hesitating to reach out and do something for somebody if you can. Just a handshake or a hi makes a difference in some people's lives. So if you've got it, share it. If you don't hesitate to reach out for help.
Beautiful. Eric, Barry, thank you so much for being our chief meeting organizers for the maintenance workshop in Nashville, and also for being our guest today. Thanks for all you guys do. And to all our viewers, be safe, keep in touch, and we'll see you down the road.